a church family. Thanks, man. And now I get to introduce my best friend. Here he is. Eddie Otero is getting to teach for us today. He's getting to open up God's word. His first opportunity to preach a sermon, if you remember, was last August at this time. And it was the Sunday that almost everyone in this church family got COVID. And so we all had to do the service online, and Eddie was like, yes. And so Eddie sat in his gamer chair with his headset on, and he taught the word from his room, and he was like, that was perfect. That was exactly what I needed. And so he answered the call to be obedient, to step out and to teach the word in public, live, in person, in front of you all. And so I'm just so thankful. And Lord, I just pray you bless Eddie's words and bless our hearts to be able to hear exactly what you have for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, can you hear me? All right, cool. Am I good? Good voice? Hey, how y'all doing? Hey, yeah, the lights are different, right? I feel like our faces. I'm excited because, I've been very convicted with this message, just the way how to view family. I know we're in the book of Proverbs. All right, so in the book of Proverbs, we're talking about influencers. Just to recap what Noah was talking about last week, he spoke about friends, right? He spoke about how your friends influence you, right? And as we know, everyone influences you, right? He spoke about how the more you hang out with Jesus, you look more like Jesus, right? And obviously, the more people you don't hang around that don't look like Jesus, the more you look like them, right? So on and so forth. So I'm going to tackle the issue with family, right? So some of y'all may or may not know me. My name's Eddie. I'm one of the leaders here. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Eva? So some of y'all may know that I hate the beach. I hate the sun, and I hate bodies of water, not like taking a shower, stuff like that, but like, rivers, lakes, ponds, stuff like that. The reason why I hate it is because my parents, for some reason, we first started going out to the beach, and I was okay with it. We would go like one day, maybe like once a year, twice a year, and it was fine. It was perfectly fine with me. I had no issue with that. And then, they started getting friends that love to go to the beach. So then obviously that increased the amount of time she started going to the beach. And then they thought, hey, one day isn't enough to be at the beach, right? We're going to do 2 days, all right? And then obviously these friends were encouraged to say, hey, instead of 2 days, let's hang out the whole weekend at the beach. Like I said, at the beginning, I didn't really care. I mean, it's not like I had much of a choice, right? I'm a kid. They had to force me to go. And for like the first day, I was good. And then by the end of the day, I was like dead, right? I was just there, like exhausted, like, just in the sun, drying up. And, by the second day, I was like, yo, this sucks. Like, this is awful. Like, I'm just here. And for some reason, I don't know why, my parents decided to never bring shade. So they never brought like umbrellas. They never brought like a tent. So I was literally just in the sun for like 12 hours for 3 days. So I started hating that. And this is pre-cell phone. So it's not like I just, hide my pain away, on the phone. I can't do that. So then I'm like, yo, this is awful. And little by little, I started hating going to the beach. I started hating the sun. And I started hating water. And so, me and Maria, we're having a child. And y'all can judge me if y'all want. I want to make sure my child hates the beach, the sun, and the water. All right? That way I don't feel bad for not taking them. All right? And don't invite me to a beach party. Don't invite me to a pool party. I'm not going. You have been warned. All right? So that's like a funny story, right? About how, I was influenced my family to hate the beach, hate water, so on and so forth. And so like, I guess the big idea is realizing how Jesus calls us to be more influenced by his family than our very own. And this was like I said, this was a very convicting message to me for the reasons I'm going to tell you. So let's pray. So bow your heads, close your faces. I do this with students, so bow your heads, close your faces. All right, so let's pray. All right, Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you that, I'm preaching in person instead of online. I just pray that you open up our hearts to realizing how you expect us to view family and your expectations of family, and how ultimately that's a reflection of your characteristics and who you are. For us that, have our own versions of family, I just pray that with this. That way we can edify you, glorify you, and honor you. So, thank you for this. And lead me by your spirit. In Jesus' name, okay? Amen. All right, so we're going to be in the book of Proverbs. All right, so we're going to be chapter 4, which is the big 4, and then we're going to be in the little numbers, which is 10 through 13. We got some Bibles here. I think Bibles to your sides. We got, so. All right. I think y'all say that's what's up, right? When y'all ready? Yeah, I say that's what's up. So whenever y'all ready, I get to say that's what's up, and I'll read. So Proverbs 4, chapter 4, verses 10 through 13. We good? All right. So it starts off. It says, "Hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the ways of wisdom. I have led you in the path of uprightness. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered, and if you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instructions. Do not let her go. Guard her, for she is your life." Okay, so to give you some context, so the book of Proverbs was written by Israel's wisest king. Most of it was written by Israel's wisest king, which is Solomon, right? This man was so wise that he asked God for wisdom. Like that's kind of seen as that. Also, one of the famous stories he's known for is that there were these two ladies who had a child, and one of the children died, and then the mother of the dead child was like, "Hey, you killed my child, or my child died," and then you switched it to the mother whose child didn't die, right? And obviously it was like back and forth, she said stuff. So then they take it to the king, which is Solomon, and he's like, "Hey, how about I make this proposal? How about I chop your child in half? You take one side, you get the other." Obviously, the mother with the dead child's like, "Hey, I'm for it. Why not?" The other mother, who the actual child belongs to, she's freaking out, right? She's crying, she's sobbing. She's like, "Hey, how about you don't do that? You just let her keep the child. I'd rather have my child alive than dead, right?" And that's how Solomon figured out, hey, this is the actual child of this actual mother. All right, that's kind of wise. I mean, I wouldn't do it that way, but yeah, I guess that's kind of wise. So this is Solomon talking to his son, right? So this is a father and son relationship, right? So one of the reasons why I love the book of Proverbs, it's actually one of my favorite books, is because it talks about everything. So it talks about every issue that you could think of. It talks about money, it talks about fame, it talks about laziness, it talks about sex, it talks about how profound the world is. It talks about friends, family, work, how you should view everything, right? And the book of Proverbs isn't meant for you to see it as a statement, right? It isn't meant for you to be like, "Hey, if I do the wisdom that it's given me, then I deserve X, Y, and Z," right? It's a guideline. So the cool thing about this is that in the Western world, we see wisdom as applied knowledge. So the best example I can give you guys is fire, right? We know that fire is colorful. We know that fire is hot. We know that fire is dangerous. And so when you see a fire, you don't walk up to it, stick your hand in it and get burned. Or if you see a fire, you call a firefighter, and so on and so forth. So that's you have knowledge and then you apply it. The way the Hebrew people see it, especially in the Old Testament, they use the word, which I'm probably going to butcher, for wisdom is chokmah. And what that means is that it's seen as a skill. So while they would consider, applied wisdom wise, they wouldn't necessarily be like, "Okay, that's kind of what God is instructing you in this." What they see it as in like, so in the Old Testament, they would consider carpenters wise, right? Because they have a particular set of skill and they can master that skill. They would consider that to be wisdom. They would say, "Hey, this person is wise because he has, this masterful skill." And in our context, it would be like mechanics, right? It would be farmers, right? That's how they would see it. They would say, "Hey, these people are wise because they have this particular set of skill that they can enhance," right? So the reason why this is key is because they also see it as divine wisdom, right? So they don't see it as regular wisdom where, we have someone who's 1,000 years old and, says some cool stuff. They see it as someone who's like, "Hey, like, like this reflects God's characteristics. Like this is wisdom is an aspect of God. It's a personality of God." So by this logic, then it makes sense when you read the book of Proverbs, right? And now that you read the book of Proverbs, it makes sense that Solomon is so emphatic when he's talking to his son, when he says, "Hey, hear my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many." And so the son would see it as like, "Hey, like this is divine wisdom from God that was given to my father by God. So that's why, and that's why it's emphatic. He's telling him, hey, like, I need you to listen. I need you to really, really listen to what I'm telling you, because this is divine wisdom from God. And that's how the Jewish people would see it when they would read this passage. And obviously we see it as like, oh, you just apply it if you want, and, you'll be wise. So why is this critical? Because, or how does this fit with family and the definition of how we view family? The reason why is because we got some definitions of family, right? So we got 3 definitions of family. So the first one is a group of one or more parents and their children living together as a unit. That's a pretty simple, right? It's either a single parent, or you got 2 parents that are living with the child. That's kind of self-explanatory. And the second is all the descendants of a common ancestor, kind of like the household of Abraham, or from Morales, or whoever here is close. Is that right? Because I used to say cohabiting. Right, so the family of close. Anyway, so you kind of get it, right? You get where I'm going with it? And then the last definition is, this is actually the government's definition. The government's definition is a group of 2 or more persons related by birth, marriage, or adoption who live together is considered members of one family. And I actually like this. I like this definition. I would tweak it a bit, because I got some boys that I consider family. So, right, the boys somewhere in there, or the homies in there. But the government doesn't see it that way. So we digress. So this is pretty standard, right? We can all agree, right? This is what family is, right? My mother who gave me birth, right? I would consider that family. My wife, I would consider that family. Or you adopt a child, you consider that family who live together, right? We're considered a family. So this was convicting because I don't have that different. Well, this is my standard definition of family, but God's definition of family doesn't fit this narrative at all, like at all. So if you want, go to Matthew chapter 12, verses 46 to 50. All right. So is everyone there? Matthew chapter 12, a big number 12, and then little number 46 to 50. So here we read. So to give you some context, Jesus is speaking to some people and his family, his mother, brothers, and sisters want to talk to him, like his actual mother, brother, and sisters. So let me read it. So it says, while he was still speaking to the people, behold, his mother and his brother stood outside, asking to speak to him. But he replied to the man who told him, who is my mother and who are my brothers? And stretching out his hand towards his disciples, he said, here are my mother and here are my brothers. Right. And then verse 50 says, for whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. So the reason why in all honesty, this definition offended me because, I think of, hey, like my wife is my family. I think of my siblings as family. I think of my mother as family. Here Jesus is saying the exact opposite. He's not even including any of them. He's like, he even questions. He's like, yeah, who is my family, right? And he gets straight to the point. Says, no, whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is actually my brother and my sister and my mother. And I started reflecting because I was like, hey, Lord, like, what are you teaching me here? Like, what are you trying to explain to me? What are you, what are you getting at? What's the point of this, this sermon that, you're asking me to preach? And I was like, like, this is a hard pill to swallow because, like, and that's throwing the offense. It's like God saying, hey, you guys are my family more than my actual family, right? And if you're honest, we don't think like that. I mean, if you're being really honest, I'm just being honest. I don't think like that. I would say, hey, like, Maria's my family. You guys are my church family, and, cool. We see each other every Sunday. That's cool. More than that, that's great. Awesome. Cool. It is what it is, right? And because my justification for it was, hey, Lord, what if, like, so I was trying to, like, kind of reason with God and be like, hey, why, I was thinking, like, why does this offend me so much? Like, why is this, like, bugging me? Why is this, like, it's, like, making me feel uncomfortable? And realizing that, like, my perspective of family is is me, my wife, and then our child that we're gonna have, right? And then it extends to, you know, my siblings, my parents, your crazy uncle, all these different people, and then and then the church family, and then so on and so forth, and whoever else you consider family. And I thought I was reasoning well with God by being like, hey, you gave me your spirit, you gave me your love, so I'm thinking, hey, if I can love my family well, like my personal family well, then that is a reflection of who you are, and then I can love, my extended family well, and that's a reflection of who you are, and I can love the church family well, and that is an extension of who you are, and then we're all happy, and everything's good, and everything's great. And in reality, God was like, no, that's like a actual awful way to look at family, especially from his perspective. He said, the reason why that's an awful way is because I am the perfect family. He said, it's God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, right? They're the perfect example of family. And then he's like, and then I want you to understand the way I view family because I'm the perfect example, and then that example should reflect what my family should actually be. And then in that sense, they would reflect, to their own individual family what actually, what family is. And that's how we get influenced by our own family, right? Instead of the other way around, where I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to influence my family from my perspective, from the way I view family, right? And then hoping that, it would kind of go upwards when God is like, no, man, you have it all wrong. It should be going downwards, right? Because I am the perfect example of what family is. And that's the reason why it was offending me so much. And I was like upset because I was like, yo, I don't like this definition. Because you may or may not know me. I'm not a big fan of people, right? I like to have a smaller circle. I know I'm up here preaching, but like I'm not a fan of people. I think people suck. I think people are awful, including myself. But like it's just what it is. I'm not a fan of it, and that's why it offended me so much because God is like, hey, like you have a toxic perspective of family, and because you have a toxic perspective of family, you're always gonna hurt other people. And then I was like, okay, like chill, bro, like relax. You know what I'm saying? Like like you don't gotta say that, all that. So that's why it offended me so much to be like, yo, this man, that's why I don't want to be a leader. Um, so just with that, realizing how like man, like yeah, this is why it's one of the difficulties of being a Christian, right? Having God, sanctify you and change your perspective because you actually have to listen. If you want to be faithful and if you want to do the will of your Father, right? So and I started reflecting. I'm like, okay, Lord, like you convicted me. Okay, get to the point. What are you trying to show me, right? Um, and like I just had to sit there and reflect and be like, okay, how have I been influenced by your family? Because I know, like I said, I was trying to see it, like wisdom, like God's wisdom is shown through everything, right? So I'm like, show me your wisdom, show me where you have been showing me how I've been influenced by your family instead of me influencing them. And I sat there and I thought, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm getting nowhere with this. I'm just sitting here, and then I just kind of started thinking, and then I found a picture of these people. So these are two minorities in a food truck. Um, so the first one is Robin. She's there, Corey's wife. And the second person is Omar, who's an elder here. He's not here today. None of them are here today, I think. And I started thinking, like, okay, like this, so for context, this is our wedding day. And traditionally, well, we told them, hey, you need to be there. I think our wedding started like at 5:30, was it? 5:30, sometime like that. And we told them, hey, you got to be there, early, start prepping, the standard stuff. Um, and I guess, supposedly they said the car broke down and so on and so forth. So they show up like 3 hours later from the actual designated time. All right. If you've ever been to a Hispanic party, you know that one of the first things we do is we feed you. Right. So obviously I'm like super offended and upset because I'm like, bro, this like the party started like 3 hours ago. And you're barely getting here and now you have to set up, cook everything, and eventually feed. So Omar and Robin were like, hey, we're gonna help out and jump in. And obviously, someone took the picture of them helping out, being in the food truck. So, and the reason why I mentioned this picture is because my mom comes up to me and says, hey, why are these people helping? They're not family. And I think, I don't remember what I said. I said something like, yeah, that's my church. That's what they do. Like, whatever. Like, it's just what they do. Right? That's what they do. what I should have said in reality, looking back at it, is like, yeah, she was right. Like, family was helping, right? God's family was actually helping me and was helping us. And then my dad said the exact same thing the day after. He was like, hey, it was like exact same word for word. My parents, they're split, so they don't talk. So, and it was like a God thing, right? He said the exact same thing. He's like, hey, why are these people like helping? They're not family. And like I said, yeah, that's what church people do. Yeah, you know, whatever, it's my church does. Just, you know, they're just there. And and what I should have said was, yeah, you're right, family was helping, but I didn't, right? But looking back at it, this was an example. This was God's wisdom, the skill, God's wisdom showing me, hey, like, your family was helping you. Like, I have been influencing you with my family for like years. This is like 4 years ago, right? So just having to sit and reflect. And then we got, afterwards, we have a week later, my uncle dies, right? He made our cake. He was there. He got bit by a spider and died. Yeah, like a year later. So he dies, and known him, most of my life. We shared rooms together for 5 years, and yeah, and then I didn't know how to feel, right? I was just like, oh, he just died out of nowhere. And then the movement there was praying for us, was making sure we had our needs, supplied. And then at that point, I didn't realize God's family, was influencing me. Like, I just thought that's what church does. It's just, you kind of just, I wouldn't consider it family. I would just say that's kind of like what you're supposed to do, right? And then it doesn't end there, right? So, and then me and Maria, obviously, we get married. This happens. And then our first year of marriage is like actually like pretty tragic. We're just like arguing all the time. We don't see eye to eye. We have different perspective on like what our roles are. I'm kind of selfish. No, I am selfish. I'm selfish. I'm like, bro, like, I consider myself super independent. I like to be by myself, for myself, all that stuff. Obviously, my wife didn't like that, right? I didn't see it as an issue. I'm like, bro, like, leave me alone. Like, what are you doing? Right? We would get into arguments. Like, I would go to Wendy's and not buy her anything. Like, I'm like, you should have asked me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should have asked me. She's like, you should assume that I should know. I'm like, bro, whatever, man. So just arguments, and that escalates, and then we're just like arguing. We're cursing at each other. Yes, we curse. We're not. I'm not saying that to like brag, but I'm saying that like we're unholy, right? We're over here, breaking our stuff because we're mad at each other, and it's just like super awful for like the first year. It's tragic, and then the Morales, right? They helped us, right? They were, we spoke to them because they're like, bro, like this is getting pretty awful. Like we're gonna end up getting divorced or something. Like this is pretty awful. And at that point, I didn't know God was showing me His wisdom, right? God was put the Morales, Stacy and Omar in our lives to encourage me how to actually love my wife the way Jesus would, want me to love my wife. And then vice versa, they would teach my wife how to love me as Jesus intended. And at that point, that was God's family, right? God's family was helping me, was influencing me, was showing me His wisdom on how, to be a good husband, right? The next example is my wife. And then where's she at? Noah. Where's Noah at? Oh, yeah, I don't know. So Noah, so both of them, as I was previously saying, I don't like people. I really don't. I have no problem saying it. People annoy me. They get on my nerves. All that type of stuff. And they encourage me, right? They show me God's wisdom. They influence me to love people better, right? Believe it or not, they're both like the same person, just different genders. It's like the weirdest thing ever. So weird that they're literally both like the same person, just like split. It's so weird. And God obviously knew that and put both of them in my life to encourage me and show me how to love people, right? Because if I say something slick or something rude, guess who's gonna let me know? My wife, right? She's gonna be like, hey, you shouldn't have said that. You gotta go apologize, and so on and so forth, right? And Noah's always like, it's okay, buddy. Like, you got this. Like, I'll pray for you. All that type of stuff, right? And that's what that's how Noah sounds like. And realizing once again, God is showing me His wisdom, His hokmah. He's showing me that, and showing me, that I'm being influenced by His own family. And me not realizing it, I'm just thinking it's just what God does, right? It's just what it is. So another example is if you want to learn how to pray. We got some family members that love how to pray. That want, you want to be encouraged in your faith. You want to, get closer to God. Talk to Dwayne. Like Dwayne will pray for you. He knows how to pray. We have a saying because he used to be my boss. So we would say you got Dwayne because he would literally just like call, send like a voice, a message, like a voicemail or voice message on, on your iPhone, just praying for you, right? And that would always encourage me, and not realizing that I was being influenced by him to pray more, and then do that for others, right? Not only that, if you want to learn how to like worship God better, you want to be encouraged how to worship God better, talk to like the worship team, right? Talk to Brielle, talk to Robin, talk to Nicole, talk to Noah now, because he's part of the worship team, right? They'll show you, they'll influence you, they'll show you God's wisdom on how to worship Him better, right? So we have all. So like I said, that's why it is crucial for us to view family the way God wants us to view family, because like I said, the way I was viewing it was completely backwards, right? It was like, hey, I'm gonna do it through my reasoning. I'm gonna show, I'm gonna show God, I'm gonna show others that, hey, I can love people, and obviously that'll extend, upwards and upwards. And God is like, no, you don't know what love, you don't know what love is, you don't know what family is. You hate people, so I'm like, you're not gonna go far, bro. So once again, Jesus is calling us to be more influenced by His family, right, than our very own. So I want you all to stand up. I know, stand up. Boom. I heard that sigh. Okay, stand up. Everyone stand up. So I'm gonna show y'all a video. So, hold on. Boom. So I'm gonna show y'all a video. So I need you to follow along because this video will actually save your life. Believe it or not, it will. It will save your life. All right. So y'all need to follow along. I think I got the audio. We got the audio, Donald. It would actually save your life. So follow along. Do what they tell you. He's gonna instruct you on some, how to defend yourself. All right.
The deadliest self-defense move known to man. However, this move is only for life or death situations and not to be messed with. This move was created by Yeltsin in 1987. However, it was immediately banned from all karate competitions due to its violent nature, which is why once again I urge you to use caution. Step 1 is to make a fist ensuring that your thumb is on the outside of your fingers. If it is on the inside, it can break your thumb during impact. Do this with both hands. You now want to place your fists halfway between your chest and your hip. Once you're at this point, move them slowly from side to side, and eventually the momentum will end up with you.
Which pretty good, huh? I just wanted to do that. I don't think that's not part of the sermon. It's part of the sermon. I just wanted to do it because I thought it'd be funny. So, yeah. So I don't know. So you guys got rickrolled, something that happens on the internet. So, but one thing is true in life, right? Death, taxes, and you getting trolled by me. All right, that is a certain of life. But yeah, so yeah, family is difficult. One of the issues that when I think of family, especially the way God sees it, I think that family can be toxic. I think that when I think of family, I usually cringe in two aspects when I think of family. I cringe when I hear it at workplaces, and I cringe when I hear it at church. And the reason why I usually cringe is because usually in my mind, I'm like, you're just going to get used, you're going to get abused, right? There's many stories of churches, of God's family hurting God's family, right? There's many issues, you could just look it up. And I just want to encourage you, right? I want to let you know that, I do believe one of the reasons why we hurt each other, obviously we're sinful, right? We're sinful, we're selfish, we like to be about ourselves, and so on and so forth. But it's because of an unhealthy perspective of what family actually is, right? So the way God intended and the way Jesus intended is to say, hey, if you do my will, you are part of this family, right? I will show you how to love, others. I will show you how to be gracious to others. I will show you how to encourage each other. I will show you my, the perfect example of what family is. And this, and that's why we have church hurt, because we usually say, no, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it the way I view family, and so on and so forth. So for those of you that aren't part of the family, I want to encourage you and let you know that there is hope, right? Jesus gives you hope. If you accept Him, you're part of the family. Like I said, we're not perfect. I know here we have a saying that church is not like family, it is family. And for that very reason, like I said, I want to invite you and say, hey, you have the opportunity to accept who Jesus is and be part of this family. It's not easy. Like I said, I don't like people, right? But God is working on me to love people, right? And that's a constant thing that I have to work with, maybe to the day I die, right? And like I said, God's Spirit is in me. He's strengthened me, right? He sometimes, silences my mouth when I want to say something that I shouldn't say. Makes me, puts me in a situation where I have to be sacrificial towards God's family, right? So on and so forth. So I just want to extend that invitation to you, realizing like, hey, God is calling you to this family. We do have responsibilities, right? As any family, you have responsibility to encourage each other, look out for each other, take care of each other. And if you do offend, like, actually apologize and reconcile. Like, don't just be like, I offended Jerlene and I'm just going to ignore her. That's not what God will want. I mean, it's not even healthy in an actual family. It's just not. It's not healthy in God's family either. Especially in God's family where you are expected to ask for forgiveness, to repent, and to keep trusting in what Jesus did for you. So, and for for people that are part of the family, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to have a healthy perspective of what family is. Right, and that means like sitting down. Like I said, I had to sit down and I had to reflect and I had to get convicted and I had to get offended, right? I had to get uncomfortable to understand that, hey, I have an awful view of what family is. And God was like, it's okay because I love you and I forgive you and I have been gracious to you. I've been showing you my wisdom throughout your years, even though you have a terrible perspective of what family is, right? So like I said, I want to encourage you, have a healthy perspective. Sit down, reflect, like genuinely reflect. Don't be like, Lord, talk to me, and then like you don't listen to him for like a minute, and then you go, play Minecraft, or you play Fall Guys, which I'm pretty good at that. Like that's not what God is calling you to do, right? So actually sit down, reflect, and actually be offended, right? Like actually like get up, like me, like okay, because I genuinely had to be there and get upset at God and be like, yo, like you can't call me out like this, right? You can't say this. This is dumb, right? I don't like this. But because of that, like I said, I'm able to encourage you guys, and God is able to encourage me, and I'm able to see what family actually is. So, I'm gonna end in prayer, and then we got a question. If I'm not mistaken, I think we got a question, and then we're gonna come back for communion, and then we'll be on our way. All right. So bow your heads and close your faces. All right, Lord. I thank you for this day. I thank you for this time. I thank you that you convict us when we're stubborn and you're gracious to us when we're stubborn. I pray that, the topic of family isn't an easy one because we all have our perspectives, we all have our reasonings, our justifications to view family the way we want to view it. But I know that at the end of the day, you give us your spirit and you influence us to love each other more. I pray that we see how your family is extremely crucial to influencing not only the people around us, but also be a reflection of who you are and how you are the perfect family. So I thank you for this day. Jesus, name we pray, amen. That's the question. So what are some wrong ideas you have about family that being a part of the church can help you correct? So if y'all can mingle and talk, hopefully talk, about the question. And then we'll come back in what, like 5 minutes? 10 minutes? I'm not the time guy. I guess 5 minutes? Okay, 5 minutes, and then we'll do communion, and then, we'll be on our way. All right? So y'all can talk. No, it can't. It actually can't. Dude, have you ever been in a... I just did it that time. I could have tried it. Oh, that's not it.
They shall mount up on wings like an eagle in their soar. They shall walk